I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Todd. As you guys know, I was involved with the Friends of Convocations for 6 years, a few years back. And Jim Leslie, are you still on that board? No. So here's a little bit of background about Todd. Is that he is the Assistant Vice Provost for Student Life and oversees the Purdue Memorial Union, the Union Club Hotel, student activities and organizations, the Hall of Music and the Hall of Music Productions Enterprise, and serves as the Executive Director of Purdue Convocations. Wow. The multidisciplinary performing arts presenting organization at Purdue University, where he presents over 35 performances each season, most of which we buy tickets to. And the industry service includes executive board member and treasurer for the Association of Performing Art Presenters, co-chairs for the Midwest Art Conference, and as a grant panelist for the National Endowment for the Arts and the Indiana Arts Commission. He holds an interdisciplinary BA in music and business, principal instrument piano, and an MBA. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Todd Wetzel.
It's so great to see you all, and I am honored to have received the invitation. When Rod reached out to me, it was with pleasure that I could say yes. And you caught me just in between travels, so it's absolutely perfect time on the calendar. As I was surveying the room and greeting so many of you, it's kind of like Old Home Week. I see many members of our Convos audience, the board members of the Friends Convos board, I think even a little bit of Tippy Tasters membership back here. So folks that have been encountered in so many settings, so it's a pleasure to be here. Too bad Bill left, because his joke kind of reminded me of one that I would have been happy to share with him, so you can pass this one along to him. It's the joke that goes, what did the dad say to his son when he asked to borrow $40? $30? What do you want to borrow $20 for? Let it sink in. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about Purdue Convocations. As Gail mentioned, I have a number of organizations in my portfolio at present, and I'm very thrilled to tell you that many of you may have known Bob Mindrum, who served for 20 years as the director of the Purdue Memorial Union. He retired this past December, and so part of what I've been doing, in addition to being Assistant Vice Provost and Executive Director of Convocations, I've also been serving as the Acting Director of the Purdue Memorial Union. So it was with great pleasure this past month that we got a new director for the union, and he'll start in September, and I'm only counting the days, but it'll be great to have him on board. So at some point, it might be a great opportunity for you to bring Dr. Zane Reif to come and visit with you, and you can hear about the great things that are happening at the Purdue Memorial Union, which all of us may recall serves as a memorial to all of the Purdue community members who have served in the armed forces on behalf of the institution in whose service we memorialize. So it's obviously one of the assets of campus that we think of, and that helps us hold Purdue dear in our hearts, is that we have a place that serves as our living room there. So it's a true honor for me to have the union as part of my day-to-day concerns. But the organization that I have been with since 1997, I just rang in 20 years here at Purdue, and I had no idea that when I came to Purdue for my 2 or 3 year bus stop that I would still be here. This community and this institution have a way of sinking their hooks into you. Around the room, we all know this story in our own lives, so it's a pleasure to have had it carry itself out in mine. What I'd like to do is just tell you a little bit about this organization that, like the work that you do here at Kiwanis, which is we work together to make our community an incredibly powerful place to live. We put what we do into clearly a service perspective to serve the community and make it be a place that's really desirable. And we work at it in all kinds of ways. So the cultural sector is a very important piece of what it means to have quality of life where you live. And so Purdue Convocations is now in its 115th season. And so we are a long piece of the Purdue experience and definitely a long part of the community experience. I just think in my 20 years how much the town has been transformed, including all of the things that happened with orange barrels on the roads. I actually didn't have to deal with State Street to get here today, so I was kind of happy I could just come north from campus. But these organizations are long parts of the history, and so Convocations has been bringing world-class performance and discourse to Purdue since 1902. And what does that really mean? Well, we embody it in our mission statement, and so I'm not going to be super dry about this, but I think it's really great to see why is an arts presenting organization at an institution of higher education different than an arts organization that may just exist in a community at large. And it's precisely because we are in an institution of higher education. We are therefore obligated to connect to this institution to which we belong. So we frame it this way. Excuse me. Purdue Convocations catalyzes the curriculum, energizes the community, and distinguishes Purdue through powerful performances, illuminating discourse, and extraordinary learning encounters. You can see inside that statement the things that are there because we are part of Purdue. And what we hope to do is to be a national leader and collaborator in making the performing arts and discourse essential to everyone's life. We live in a complicated world. Marion, I was thinking about your invocation, and we all read the paper. We're paying attention to what's going on around us, and we live in a world where we have to connect to what is happening. And so part of what we see is that the work that we do is not merely escape. Sometimes we do need to recharge ourselves and gather our energies, and performance can do that. Other times, though, performance can take us into a special place where we can discuss something that we couldn't do it in any other way. It gives us a place where, as a community, we can share an experience and use that to go to another level on an issue. So we see this very much as a part of our role. So I'll just break that down into those three pieces again, because everything that we do as a part of our strategic plan is really rooted in these three big hoppers. So I'll just sort of pull back the curtain, pun intended, on what this means. Catalyze the curriculum. This means that we look for ways for our performances to have traction in the classroom. We say, a student, the classic ideal is that you go to university to encounter the world and to learn how to learn. So we want to make sure that what we do is not merely extracurricular or only for fun, but we are working with creative faculty to integrate our performances into syllabi across the disciplines. So not limited to just the performing arts or to humanities broadly. There are ways to connect. What you're seeing in this particular image is a workshop discussion that we had with students across the robotics interdisciplinary application area. You can think about robotics. It has mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, psychology, human factor engineering, philosophy, because you're thinking about the implications of human and machine interaction. We think about all of this all the time today when you think about how much information do we give, let's say, via Facebook out into the world, and we start to encounter the larger scale ethical and philosophical questions of our relationship to technology. So this was a workshop with Purdue faculty and the artist, and in the background is the orange robot that was choreographed for a dance with a dancer. And so it was a piece that gave us a platform for really in-depth interdisciplinary discussion, and many different academic areas were connected in that. So that serves as a model for the kind of thinking that we do, and I'll give a few more examples as I go further on. The big second part, energize the community. We do want to have amazing performances here. We want to know that this community is a cultural center and that we can encounter extraordinary performances. Gail says, I was there. Let's see if we can find you, Gail. Where are you? Pretty close.
Ryan Lewis.
So we want students to have these experiences. We want our community to have this experience. I live here too. I want to be in a community where these great things exist. So I'm just as much, I'm a member of the Friends of Convocations. I support the cultural activity myself. In addition, I have the pleasure and privilege of working in it, but I want to live in a community that has this as an asset. And then, of course, we are Purdue boosters. We are at Purdue. We love Purdue. And we want Purdue to continue to be an extraordinary, comprehensive institution. We have our historic strengths, and we celebrate those. But we also insist, by the work that we do, that Purdue offers a comprehensive experience for students. We bring students from all over the world, and our students can encounter the world here. So we are working on ways, though, to say, how can the work that Convocations does serve in a nation-leading way? I'll give you an example or two in a little bit. But we want to make sure that Purdue understands its assets and sees Convocations as advancing the cause for Purdue globally. So in just rough form, we bring more than 30 performances and engagements a year. It's world-class, which means we are looking to bring the best of the best. This is not a value judgment, however, against all of our good friends in cultural organizations in the town that are, for example, Civic Theater or Lafayette Symphony Orchestra, organizations in which we see our friends and neighbors on stage. We are not making a value judgment to say that that is not great. It is one of the most amazing experiences for us as a community to see our friends and neighbors on stage performing, and we celebrate those wins. And so our colleagues in those organizations are absolutely essential also to this cultural fabric that we have. But what we're doing is making sure that artists that succeed in the world at the highest level also have a place on our stage. And that's our particular role. And we look for that globally. I had the great privilege of traveling to festivals and other experiences to look for performances to bring here, because we are looking for a very special fit. So we do take the time and energy to look for these performances. So in June, I spent 2 weeks traveling in China as part of a delegation to see many, many companies. And I'm already working on several projects to bring companies from China here. A week from tomorrow, I leave to go to the festival in Edinburgh, Scotland. Then I'll see another 35 to 40 performances in a week, and look for things to bring here. And so it's just part of this work that we do to have a global perspective and have these artists in our midst. Our student population is international. Our faculty and staff are international and diverse. Our community is diverse, and so we want to make sure that we are reflective of this world in which we live. Relevance, I spoke to that earlier, in that we want to be connected to the conversations and concerns that we have here locally, as well as the ones that we're thinking about nationally and globally. There's plenty for us to think about, and great ways to create discussion. And we're not intending to do this in any sort of a way that's clouded by partisanship. We're interested in doing it for the benefit of the community, because one of the things that we can help teach is civil discourse. It is important for us to understand why we are each different from each other, have different perspectives, and remind individuals that as a culture, we have inculcated ways for us to have discussion and have discourse even when we disagree, and to continue to be a beacon for what how that is modeled. So that leads right into discourse. Convocations helps produce the presidential lecture series for President Daniels, and we've also brought lectures and thinkers over the years, and so we will continue to do that work where we can, all of us as a community, come into contact with some of the brightest minds out in the world. And we are community creating. We are working for ways to bring people together. Every time you walk into a theater, you are having a shared experience by your choice with everyone sitting in the room. A live performance happens that one time, even if there's another performance the next day, it is going to be different from the one that you just experienced. And so we develop a bond as a community by sharing these experiences together, just the way that you all develop a bond by having lunch together on a regular basis and doing this work. It's the same idea, and there's nothing better than building friends and relationships inside things that create community. Of course, we're at the university, and students are a very big part of what we do. So I'll decode some of the acronyms. We're from Purdue, so we have to have great acronyms. So CVN is the Convocations Volunteer Network. This is a group of over 300 students who have the great desire to be connected to what we do. They want to see performances, and so they volunteer as ushers. This is right in the service ethic that Kiwanis has. Like you were talking about rounding up folks for football. Well, these students do the same thing. They are part of our enterprise.